Before we begin this incredible true story, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you never miss another amazing story. Like this one, Marcus had always been the class clown. Ever since he was a little boy in Manchester, he found joy in making people laugh. His teachers would shake their heads when he cracked jokes during serious lessons. His parents would try to hide their smiles when he mimicked the neighbors. Now, at 23 years old, Marcus had turned his love for comedy into a career. He ran a popular social media account where he posted funny videos and pranks. His followers loved his content, and every week, he would try to come up with something new and exciting to share with them. One sunny morning in July, Marcus woke up with an idea. He had seen many videos of tourists trying to make the royal guards at Buckingham Palace laugh or react. These guards were famous for standing completely still, no matter what happened around them. People would dance, sing, make funny faces, or tell jokes, but the guards never moved a muscle. Their discipline was legendary. Marcus thought this would be perfect content for his channel. He could go to London, try something creative to get a reaction, and film the whole thing. His followers would love it, and it would surely get thousands of views. Marcus spent the next few days planning his trip. He lived about 3 hours away from London, so he decided to make it a day trip. He charged his camera, packed some props, and practiced his best comedy routine in front of the mirror. He felt excited and confident. After all, he had made hundreds of people laugh before. How different could this be? On the morning of his trip, Marcus took the train to London. The city was buzzing with tourists from all over the world. Street performers entertained crowds, vendors sold souvenirs, and the smell of fresh food filled the air. When Marcus arrived at Buckingham Palace, he was amazed by how grand it looked. The Golden Gate sparkled in the sunlight, and tourists were everywhere, taking photos and admiring the famous building. Marcus walked around for a while, observing the guards. They stood in their red uniforms and tall black bearskin hats, looking straight ahead without blinking. He watched as several tourists tried to get their attention. One man did a silly dance. A woman made exaggerated facial expressions. A group of teenagers told loud jokes. But none of the guards moved even slightly. They were like statues. Marcus set up his camera on a small tripod and positioned himself in front of one particular guard. This guard looked young, probably in his mid-20s, with a serious expression on his face. Marcus took a deep breath and started his performance. He began with some simple jokes, speaking loudly enough for the camera to pick up his voice. The guard did not react. Marcus then pulled out a rubber chicken from his bag and made it dance around. Still nothing. He tried funny accents, strange noises, and even a magic trick he had learned years ago. The guard remained perfectly still, staring straight ahead as if Marcus did not exist. After about 15 minutes, Marcus started to feel a bit embarrassed. Other tourists had gathered around to watch, and some were laughing at his attempts. But the guard gave him nothing. Marcus decided to try one final thing. He pulled out a small portable speaker and started playing a silly song, dancing wildly in front of the guard. He spun around, waved his arms, and made the most ridiculous faces he could think of. The crowd around him grew larger, and people were recording on their phones. But the guard still did not move. Marcus finally stopped dancing and stood there, catching his breath. He felt defeated. All his jokes, all his props, all his energy had failed to get even the smallest reaction from the royal guard. He looked at the guard's face one more time, hoping to see at least a tiny smile or a flicker of amusement in his eyes. But there was nothing. The guard stood as still and serious as ever. Marcus sighed, picked up his camera and tripod, and started to walk away. The crowd around him began to disperse, moving on to take photos or watch other guards. As Marcus walked about 20 feet away, something unexpected happened. He heard a voice call out behind him. It was not loud or angry, just firm and clear. Marcus turned around and saw that the guard had stepped slightly forward. The young man in the red uniform was looking directly at him. Marcus felt confused. Had he done something wrong? Was he in trouble? His heart started beating faster as he walked back toward the guard. The guard's expression had changed. He no longer looked like a statue. There was something human in his eyes now, something that had not been there moments before. The guard glanced around quickly, making sure no senior officers were watching. Then he spoke in a low voice. He told Marcus that he needed to stop what he was doing, not because it was against the rules, but because of something else entirely. Marcus listened carefully, not sure what to expect. The guard explained that his name was James. He had been serving as a royal guard for 3 years. It was a job he took seriously, and he had trained hard to earn the position. But today was different. Today was special and painful at the same time. James told Marcus that exactly 1 year ago, on this very day, his younger brother had died in a car accident. His brother had been only 19 years old, full of life and dreams. He had always loved making people laugh, just like Marcus. He would tell jokes at family dinners, do funny impressions, bring joy to everyone around him. Marcus felt his chest tighten as he listened. He had come here to make a funny video, to get likes and views, without thinking about the real people behind the uniforms. James continued talking, his voice steady, but filled with emotion. He explained that standing guard today had been incredibly difficult. Every tourist who tried to make him laugh reminded him of his brother. Every silly dance, every joke, every funny face brought back memories of the young man he had lost. James had been fighting back tears all morning, focusing on his duty to remain still and professional. When Marcus had appeared with his rubber chicken and his silly song, James had seen his brother in him. The same energy, the same desire to bring joy to others, the same innocent belief that laughter could make the world better. It had taken everything in James to not break down right there. He had squeezed his hands tighter around his rifle, focused on a spot on the wall across from him, reminded himself that he was a royal guard. He had a duty to perform, no matter what pain he felt inside. Marcus stood there, speechless. He had never expected anything like this. He had thought the guards were just people who liked standing still, who had no emotions or feelings. But James was real. His pain was real. His brother had been real. Marcus felt a wave of shame wash over him. He had been so focused on getting content for his channel that he had forgotten these were actual human beings with lives, families, and struggles. James took a deep breath and looked directly into Marcus's eyes. He told him that he was not angry. He understood that Marcus meant no harm and was just trying to entertain people. But he wanted Marcus to understand something important. Behind every uniform, behind every serious face, there was a person with a story. Some were dealing with loss, some with stress, some with problems Marcus could never imagine. When people came to mock them or treat them like objects for entertainment, it hurt more than anyone realized. Marcus felt tears forming in his own eyes. He apologized to James, his voice shaking with genuine remorse. He explained that he ran a comedy channel and had come to London specifically to film content with the guards. He had never thought about what they might be going through. He had only seen them as part of a challenge, a way to get views and make his followers laugh. But now he understood how wrong that was. He told James how sorry he was, not just for today, but for every video he had seen online where people treated the guards like props. James nodded slowly. He appreciated Marcus's honesty and his willingness to listen. He told Marcus that he did not need to feel terrible about what happened. The important thing was that he now understood. James explained that many guards had personal struggles. Some had lost friends in military service. Some had family members who were sick. Some were dealing with difficult relationships or financial problems. But they all came to work, put on their uniforms, and stood for hours in all kinds of weather because they believed in their duty. They protected the palace and honored the tradition of the royal guard. Marcus asked James if there was anything he could do to make things right. James thought for a moment, then said something that surprised Marcus. He asked if Marcus would be willing to use his platform differently. Instead of making videos that mocked or challenged the guards, could he create content that showed respect and understanding? Could he tell stories that reminded people of the humanity behind the uniforms? Marcus immediately agreed. He promised James that he would delete the footage he had taken that morning and create something better. Something meaningful. The two men stood there for a few more moments, no longer guard and tourist, but simply to human beings who had connected through an unexpected conversation. James had to return to his post before anyone noticed he had stepped away. He thanked Marcus for listening and for understanding. Then he straightened his uniform, lifted his chin, and walked back to his position. Within seconds, his face became serious again, and he looked straight ahead as if nothing had happened. But Marcus knew that behind that still expression was a man carrying grief, honor, and strength. Marcus walked away from Buckingham Palace that day completely changed. He sat on a bench in a nearby park and thought about everything James had told him. He looked at his camera and the footage he had recorded. He watched himself dancing around with the rubber chicken, making silly faces, trying so hard to break the guard's composure. It all seemed so shallow now, so disrespectful. He deleted every single clip. Then he opened his notebook and started writing. He wanted to tell this story the right way. Over the next few days, Marcus worked on a new video. Instead of showing himself trying to make a guard laugh, he created a short documentary about the Royal Guards. He did research about their training, their history, and their responsibilities. He reached out to former guards who agreed to share their experiences. He included stories about the physical and mental challenges they faced, the pride they felt in their service, and the sacrifices they made. And he shared his experience with James, changing his name to protect his privacy, but telling the story of their conversation and what he had learned. When Marcus posted the video on his channel, he was nervous. He knew his followers expected funny content, pranks, and jokes. This was completely different. It was serious, emotional, and educational. He wondered if people would even watch it, but he felt strongly that this was the right thing to do. He had made a promise to James, and he intended to keep it. In the description of the video, Marcus wrote about why he had changed his approach. He explained that entertainment should never come at the cost of someone's dignity or pain. The response to the video surprised Marcus completely. Within hours, it had more views than most of his comedy videos. Comments flooded in from all over the world. People thanked him for showing respect to the guards. Former military members shared their own stories of standing watch while dealing with personal grief. Parents wrote about losing children and how they appreciated Marcus's sensitivity. Even other content creators reached out, saying they had been inspired to think more carefully about their own videos. The video was shared thousands of times across different platforms. One comment in particular stood out to Marcus. It was from someone who said they were a friend of James. The comment did not reveal any identifying information, but it thanked Marcus for honoring his conversation with the guard and for spreading awareness about the human side of their duty. Reading that comment made Marcus feel proud in a way he had never felt before. All the likes and views he had gotten from his comedy videos had made him happy, but this was different. This felt like he had actually made a positive difference in the world. A few weeks after posting the video, Marcus received a private message through his social media account. It was from an email address he did not recognize. The message was short but powerful. It said that James had seen the video and wanted Marcus to know how much it meant to him. James wrote that in the years since his brother's death, he had felt alone in his grief. Standing at his post every day, pretending to have no emotions, had been exhausting. But knowing that someone understood, that someone cared enough to tell his story with respect, had given him comfort. James thanked Marcus for keeping his promise and for using his platform to spread kindness. Instead of just seeking laughs, Marcus read the message several times, tears streaming down his face. He had started this journey wanting to create viral content and grow his following. He had ended it with something far more valuable. He had connected with another human being on a deep level. He had learned about empathy, respect, and the responsibility that came with having an audience. He replied to James's message, thanking him for trusting him with his story and for teaching him such an important lesson. He told James that he hoped time would ease his pain and that his brother would be proud of the man he had become. The experience with James changed the entire direction of Marcus's channel. He still posted comedy content because he believed laughter was important and healing. But he became much more thoughtful about the kind of humor he shared. He stopped doing pranks that might embarrass or hurt people. He avoided content that treated others as objects for entertainment. Instead, he focused on clever wordplay, funny observations about everyday life, and silly skits that did not require making anyone uncomfortable. His followers noticed the change, and while some complained that he was not as edgy as before, many appreciated his new approach. Marcus also started a new series on his channel called Stories Behind the Uniform. He interviewed people who worked in jobs where they had to maintain a professional appearance regardless of their personal feelings. He spoke with theme park characters who performed while dealing with family problems, nurses who smiled at patients despite their own exhaustion, and retail workers who stayed polite even when customers were rude. Each episode reminded viewers that every person they encountered had a full life with joys and struggles. The series became incredibly popular and even won an award from a mental health organization for promoting empathy and understanding. Several months after his encounter with James, Marcus received an invitation that shocked him. It came from an organization that supported families of fallen service members. They had seen his video about the Royal Guards and wanted him to speak at their annual event in London. They thought his story about learning empathy would inspire their audience. Marcus was honored, but also nervous. He had never done public speaking before, and he worried about whether he would say the right things. But he remembered the promise he had made to James to use his platform for good, so he accepted the invitation. The event was held in a beautiful hall in central London. As Marcus arrived, he saw hundreds of people gathering. Many wore military uniforms or formal suits. Others wore casual clothes but carried photographs of loved ones they had lost. The atmosphere was both somber and warm. People hugged each other, shared memories, and found comfort in their shared experiences. Marcus felt humbled to be among them. These were people who had sacrificed so much, and he was just a comedian from Manchester who had learned an important lesson. When it was time for Marcus to speak, he walked onto the stage with shaking hands. He looked out at the audience and saw faces filled with hope and pain. He took a deep breath and began to tell his story. He talked about his journey to Buckingham Palace, his attempt to make the guard laugh, and the unexpected conversation that followed. He spoke about James and his brother, about learning to see the person behind the uniform, and about how that one encounter had transformed his entire perspective on life and work. As he spoke, he noticed many people in the audience wiping away tears. After his speech, several people approached Marcus to thank him. One woman told him that her son had been a royal guard before he died in service. She said that hearing Marcus's story helped her feel like people finally understood what her son had experienced. A young man in uniform shook Marcus's hand and told him that he was currently serving as a guard and dealing with depression. He said Marcus's video had made him feel less alone. An elderly gentleman gave Marcus a gentle pat on the shoulder and simply said, "Thank you for caring." Among the people who approached Marcus was someone he had not expected to see. It was James. He was not in uniform this time, but wore a simple suit. His eyes looked less heavy than they had that day at the palace. James smiled as he walked up to Marcus, and the two men embraced like old friends. James told Marcus that speaking about his brother's death in the message it sent had been the first step in his healing process. After that, he had started talking to a counselor and joining support groups for people dealing with grief. He was learning to carry his brother's memory without letting it crush him. Marcus and James sat together for a long time that evening, talking about life, loss, and purpose. James shared more stories about his brother, about the pranks he used to play, the dreams he had for the future. In the last conversation they had before the accident, Marcus listened with full attention, laughing at the funny parts and sitting in respectful silence during the sad parts. James told Marcus that his brother would have liked him, that they shared the same spirit of wanting to bring joy to others. That comment meant more to Marcus than any number of views or likes ever could. Before they parted ways that evening, James gave Marcus something precious. It was a small pin that had belonged to his brother. The pin showed a comedy mask, the kind used in theater to represent laughter and entertainment. James explained that his brother had worn it on his jacket every day because he believed the world needed more laughter. He wanted Marcus to have it as a reminder of why his work mattered, but also as a reminder to always consider the humanity of others. Marcus accepted the pin with trembling hands, promising to treasure it always. Marcus wore the pin every day from that moment forward. Whenever he planned content for his channel, he would touch the pin and think about James and his brother. He would ask himself whether what he was creating brought joy without causing harm, whether it entertained without disrespecting, and whether it added something positive to the world. This simple practice helped him become not just a better content creator, but a better person overall. His videos reflected his growth, and his audience grew with him, attracted by the genuine kindness that now characterized his work. 1 year after his first meeting with James, Marcus returned to Buckingham Palace. This time, he did not bring props or a camera. He simply stood among the tourists and watched the guards perform their duty. He felt a deep respect for these men and women who stood in all weather, maintaining their composure while dealing with whatever personal struggles they carried. Marcus noticed that many tourists still tried to make the guards laugh or react, and while he understood the innocent curiosity behind it, he wished they knew the stories behind those serious faces. As Marcus was preparing to leave, he noticed a young guard who looked particularly stressed. The guard's hands were gripping his rifle a bit too tightly, and there was tension in his jaw. Marcus thought about James and wondered what this guard might be going through. He walked closer and, without trying to make the guard break his composure, simply said quietly, "Thank you for your service. Whatever you're carrying today, I hope you find peace."
Ow.
The guard's eyes flickered slightly, just for a moment, and Marcus saw a hint of gratitude there before the professional mask returned. Marcus walked away from the palace that day feeling grateful. Grateful for the lesson James had taught him, grateful for the opportunity to use his platform meaningfully, and grateful for the reminder that every person he met was fighting battles he knew nothing about. He thought about how a simple moment of empathy had changed lives completely. James had found the courage to speak his truth, and Marcus had found the wisdom to listen. Together, they had created something beautiful from an unexpected encounter. Over the following years, Marcus continued to grow his channel with content that made people laugh while also making them think. He never forgot the promise he had made to James. He became known not just as a comedian, but as someone who used humor to build bridges between people rather than create divisions. He received messages from viewers all over the world who told him that his videos had helped them through difficult times, had taught them to be kinder, or had simply made them smile when they needed it most. James continued his service as a royal guard and eventually moved into a different role within the military. He stayed in touch with Marcus, and they met for coffee several times a year. Their friendship was built on mutual respect and the shared experience of that transformative day at Buckingham Palace. James would tell Marcus stories about his work, and Marcus would share ideas for new videos, always asking for James's honest opinion about whether they were respectful and meaningful. James appreciated having a friend who understood his world and who genuinely cared about doing the right thing. The story of Marcus and James spread far beyond the original video. It was featured in articles about empathy in the digital age, discussed in social media ethics courses, and even included in a book about meaningful human connections in modern times. But for Marcus and James, it was never about fame or recognition. It was about two people who met at exactly the right moment, when one needed to be heard and the other needed to learn how to truly listen. It was about the power of vulnerability, the importance of respect, and the beautiful things that can happen when we choose to see the humanity in everyone we meet. Marcus still touches the comedy mask pin every day, remembering the young man who wore it, the brother who grieved for him, and the lesson that changed everything. He knows that his attempt to shock a royal guard for laughs led to something far more valuable than viral content. It led to understanding, healing, and a friendship that would last a lifetime. And every time he creates something new, he asks himself the same question: does this honor the trust James placed in me? Does this add light to the world? If the answer is yes, he moves forward. If not, he starts again, always striving to be worthy of that small pin and the enormous responsibility it represents.